I want the Nephilim to rule over me.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Human Reaction, your weekly source for independent commentary on cultural news and politics, where it's always our mission to arm you with the tools you need to cut through media misdirection and resist the mono-narrative. We are excited today to be joined by our friend and fellow fighter in the liberty movement, Clint Russell. Clint, how are you doing today, man?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Joe Kyle David.
Absolutely, man.
I'm going to turn your three names into one name.
That works. We're a three-headed dog at this point.
Yeah,
exactly. David, how are we doing today, man? I'm coming to you, obviously, from out here in Washington State, the People's Republic of Washington. How is it back in Montana?
It's going okay, man. Getting a little chilly. Yeah, it's kind of weird. This is our first time doing two Riversides at once, so we'll see how it goes.
I love it.
Yeah.
Wait,
what are we talking about today?
It starts to get chilly in mid-September.
Yeah. It's
bro,
it was like 30 degrees last night.
Oh, bro,
Clint,
you got.
Are you in Florida?
Yeah, where you at?
Yeah, man. I'm in Miami.
Oh man.
Dang. This is how we keep the liberals out, though, Clint. This is our tactic.
I know. It's also how you keep me out, so that's the problem.
All right, what are we talking about today, Dave?
Yeah, so it's another month, another assassination attempt. Yeah, Trump assassination part 2. The diddler is busted. Arrested by the FBI. He's facing multiple indictments. And Israel turned on their super secret weapon, and it's not a space laser. It is pagers. Apparently, is their super secret weapon. And then behind the skiff, it's Groundhog Day, Groundhog Year, Groundhog every 6 months. The government's trying to fund itself again. The feds are cut interest rates yesterday. We're going to be discussing that. And the U.S. Army has a plan to invade Russia, and the U.S. Navy has a plan to fight China.
Yeah, and if you want to see the after episode in the skiff, you can join us at humanreactionpod.com and figure out how to subscribe and become a member with us and join our Substack as well. And make sure to like, follow, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave us a review on whichever platform that you are on. And thank you to all of our members. You are the lifeblood of our channel as we are continuing to grow this thing. And also join our Discord where you can chat with us about the news, share memes. We also have a super secret skiff channel for all of our paying members as well.
If you are a small business owner looking for exponential growth, you have to connect with Adam Thune at Intellectual Patriots. He will revolutionize your business game and help you get to the next level. Adam can streamline your business practices and advertising strategies to improve your bottom line. His expertise in data engineering means he can build you the systems you need to collect and analyze market data. His mission is to provide you with invaluable insights to fuel your success. From grant writing and business proposals to digital systems integrations, even AI management. Intellectual Patriots is a one-stop shop for cutting-edge solutions. Don't wait another second. Visit intelpatriots.com to learn more. That's INTEL patriots.com. This episode is brought to you by Revved Up Promo, the official apparel partner of Human Reaction. Revved Up is a premier full-service shop specializing in laser engraving, screen printing, and embroidery. Not only are they now making all of our apparel right down the road from us, they can do the same for your brand and ship it to you anywhere in the world. Revved Up helps you navigate the extensive universe of merch options and uses state-of-the-art techniques to showcase your brand in its very best light. So if you want to support our show and our generous sponsor, you can now do so by buying our merch and by turning to Revved Up Promo for your own custom apparel needs. Reach them at revveduppromo.com. That's with 2 V's and 2 P's, or just check the show notes for a link.
With that, let's get into the first topic here with the assassination attempt.
Yeah.
Let's get into it.
Yeah, only 1 month away, and we got another one. So what happened?
Well,
yeah, which one?
Yeah. So this is the Florida golf course one. So we have this interesting character that comes in, and the FBI, or sorry, not the FBI, the Secret Service finds him with his gun poking out in a bush, a hole ahead of Trump, where he made a quick audible and switched and went golfing this day. It was a surprise. It wasn't really scheduled. And they caught his barrel poking out of a bush here. And they caught him before he ever got a glimpse of Trump. I believe there was shots fired back and forth between them.
No, just from the Secret Service to him.
Yeah, just to that. And this is an interesting character. He's a guy with kind of a strange political background. He's done a bunch of things in Ukraine, which we'll dig into. Yeah. So how do you guys feel about this? Where are you guys at? Where are we at with this whole assassination bid here?
I feel like you are downplaying his strange background quite a bit. This guy's got a world-class CIA rap sheet. This guy is clearly a member of the intel community. Let me be very clear. He's not an agent. He's an asset. This guy is a lunatic. He's definitely one of those fringe characters that they see him, they go, "Oh, you're a true believer. You're definitely a danger to humanity. We're going to use you at some point down the road doing something." He wrote a book where he describes himself as this massive booster for the Free Syrian Army, which everybody knows is a CIA backed, like military coup against Bashar al-Assad. He then also goes to Poland. He goes to a bunch of other nations that are very adjacent to Ukraine. He then walks across the border to Ukraine because there's already a war there to then recruit troops once again for another CIA war in Ukraine. I'm sorry, but there's just no way that this dude isn't known inside and out to the all of the three-letter agencies, the FBI as well. Then we also have reports proving that they know that he is on their radar. Then you have journalists coming out saying, "Yeah, we've had tons of conversations with this guy. We never saw this coming." And it's like, this dude's an obvious lunatic, and they're all so fucked up themselves that they don't even see the craziness in him, because they're all as crazy as he is, because they've all been watching and propagandizing themselves in this virtuous cycle of let's just turn each other into psychopaths so that someone eventually takes a shot at Donald Trump. I swear to God, that's what happened here. This guy is completely nuts.
Well, and that's the crazy thing. So our friend Liam, I think, is the one that broke the story on his book, and the book's name was Ukraine's Unwinnable War: The Fatal Flaw of Democracy, World Abandonment, and the Global Citizen Taiwan, Afghanistan, North Korea, and the End of Humanity. It has 1-star review on Amazon, so it hasn't been very well received, but.
Well, had I known that Liam had broken that story, I would have retweeted it. I thought he was just sharing something he saw someone else post. My bad.
I think he was the first person to come out with it. At least that's the first place I saw it.
When I was talking, I did a Twitter Spaces with him the other day, and he thinks that he was the first one to find it.
Liam is in the chat, so Liam, feel free to chime in.
Confirm or deny.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, for our paying members, this is the first time we're doing it. We sent out an audience link to you guys, and we got some of you in here who are in here watching this before the episode goes out. So.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
you know what I think is really crazy though, and I gotta throw this in, and it just speaks to your point, Clint, about them knowing that of him before. He was arrested in, was it 2002 for possessing an automatic weapon, which apparently is considered a weapon of mass destruction. I think that's ridiculous.
That's what Bush was going after.
Oh no, they have automatic weapons. Time to invade.
Oh no.
Sorry.
But he has this weapon. He's arrested and then promptly let go on probation. Okay, like, does that happen to every other person who's arrested with an automatic weapon in the United States? I'm not sure if that's like par for the course or not, but that seems a little weird to me.
That plus terroristic charges, like, talk about white privilege. If you can get WMD and terroristic charges and you walk, yeah, dude, you got some serious white privilege. Look, I don't buy it. I think that the dude was flipped, or not necessarily even flipped. I think that, like, he was probably investigated, looked into, talked to, realized that, like, this guy is a total loon. He'll be perfect down the road. And you turn him into an asset, and then he was an asset. I think it's that simple. Can I prove that? No, obviously not. And will we ever know that definitively? Maybe not. I don't know. But if he's doing all of this and he's not an asset to them, I'd be absolutely jaw dropped, shocked. Well, like, that's how crazy his backdrop is.
Well, you're not alone, Clint. I mean, Edward Snowden says something is off here. He's getting clear Oswald vibes, right? Yeah. And I think I think a lot of people are going that direction reasonably because he got out of these situations. He looks like a very bad recruiter too. I mean, if you watch his Newsweek video of him trying to recruit people, it is not a clear appeal at all. He is not motivating.
He's a total asshole.
It's hard to imagine people who are like, I want to go fight for Ukraine, and be like, this blue-haired dude's really inspiring me right now. I'm gonna hop on over there.
Yeah, no, I mean, he does come across as a crazy person, but that doesn't change the fact that, like, yeah, he's a crazy person that had a fully auto rifle that was making terroristic charges and then walked. So it's like, well, why? Why was he walking?
Exactly.
And then why was he able to travel? Like, how was he able to travel from, I'm assuming it was Hawaii. I'm not 100% sure where he came from to get to Florida when apparently Trump had decided just the night prior, only a handful of people were even aware that he was going to golf that next day. This dude allegedly is camped out from 1 a.m. until 1 p.m., basically like in a sniper's nest, preparing to take this shot when he gets to the 5th or 6th hole or whatever it is. Someone tipped him off that he was going to be there. It seems quite evident to me. How did he get the rifle, another automatic rifle, I think, to be able to fire on Trump once he sees him, given that he had just flown, and also the serial code on that weapon is obliterated. If you know about Operation Fast and Furious, you know about the gun running operations that happen from the United States government through the ATF and into different cartels and all sorts of wild shit that they do. Like, that could definitely be a burner, if you will, that they handed to this guy and they say, "Hey, lunatic, go do your lunatic shit. This is what we've been waiting for." Look, you guys got to realize we're less than 2 months away from this election. As you know, not a big fan of Donald Trump. I still am of the opinion that they have been doing everything in their effing power to first prevent the guy, then stop the guy, then end the guy. I won't detail it all unless you want me to, but like, yeah, it looks to me like they're desperate and they're taking as many shots at this guy as they possibly can. Could I be wrong? Is this all a bit, could Top Lobster be the lunatic that he is? Could he have, nailed this in saying, "Oh, it's all, WWE and the blood packet on the ear, and this is all just to bolster and to trick people like you into thinking that Trump's your hero"? All right, yeah, maybe. But I don't think so. I don't think Corey Compratore, who's standing behind Trump that gets obliterated, is in on the WWE nonsense, personally.
Yeah. So it is interesting, the selective use of these giant tools of surveillance in this case, right? You have, if the official story is true, like, just take that just entertain that for a moment. You create the NSA. You create the largest surveillance technology ever in the history of mankind. You create dossiers on every individual American, stored just in case you need them to go back after the fact, right? You have the current existing cell phone data and location of everybody, right? And you got a guy who's bouncing around all these places, doing all these crazy things, interacting with law enforcement in violent ways, and he hangs out at the golf course that former President Trump is going to be at for 12 hours, and nothing gets pinged. Nothing. There's no, especially post Patriot Act. Of course, the NSA is not supposed to operate in the United States, right? But we know they do.
Yeah, of course.
Given that they're sweeping up all of our data, and on top of that, if one of the charges of the Patriot Act is to like unify all of the surveillance and law enforcement agencies into one umbrella under the Department of Homeland Security, how is there no there's a dangerous person hanging out by where the president's going to be golfing today? Like, how is that not possible? If that's communicated to Secret Service, that's not communicated uphill. I'm not saying it should be that way, but Jesus, if they have it, why is it not applied in this case, but it is applied in potentially other cases?
And then add to that there was just a bullet that grazed Donald Trump's freaking head less than 2 months ago.
Right.
You think that they're not on the highest of guards? I don't buy it. I don't know how that's possible. I just look, for libertarians, it's always hard looking at the government and deciphering whether or not this is ineptitude or corruption, because we all believe that the government is absolutely terrible at everything it does. But I'll tell you one thing I don't think that they're terrible at. It's defending their own. And when they fail to do that, I don't think it's an accident. I don't think JFK was an accident. I don't think J6 was an accident either. I think that was totally intentional too, because had they wanted to make sure that that riot doesn't pop off, that riot doesn't pop off. Another good example was the Summer of Love. If they want those riots not to pop off all over the country, they don't pop off all over the country. But they did. They did want that. So anytime I see stuff like that where I'm like, yeah, this is actually something that the government is good at doing, and they're not, and they're failing dramatically, I'm like, oh, there's a reason here. Like, this is an op that's being ran. And now,
totally.
I know I sound like a lunatic, so if anybody in this room disagrees with me, please talk me off the ledge.
I don't think
no disagreement at all.
No, I'm
okay.
I'm pretty much in agreement.
I mean, he's in an Azov battalion ad. Like, what are the chances of that? Right? Like, okay. Now, once again, it's probably probably the case that Ukraine was responsible for the Nord Stream pipeline. Probably.
Yes.
We don't know, but probably.
Well, it's Ukraine/CIA, yeah.
Yeah, right. Or Seymour's right, and it's Navy divers or something like that. That's all possible. But if it's Ukraine or the CIA, and this guy's at an Azov battalion. Now, Ukraine has a history of attacking its neighbors in order to try to provoke them into war, potentially, right? In this case, Germany, in order to get them more interested in stopping Russia.
Yep.
Wouldn't it make sense
Poland.
if someone's associated with the Azov battalion, to go to the United States and assassinate the president?
I don't know. And for those that are not necessarily aware, which most of our audience probably is, Azov Battalion is the neo-Nazi faction of the Ukrainian army. Very clearly documented neo-Nazi faction.
I debated a Atlantic Council member a couple days ago on this. And he was, and he's Jewish too. And he's like, there's like 1% of the Azov battalion that's Nazis. I was like, bro, I've watched video after video of these lunatics driving around Sea Kyling. Are you kidding me? 1%?
1%.
Sure.
Wow. How does he
It's a
know
very
that? How
visible
would you even know that?
1%.
Is there a poll, or is someone going around like, "Hey, Azov battalion, are you a Nazi?"
He says he spent time there. I was like, all right, sure.
Right.
There's also a dynamic of this guy's Twitter feed, which is very strange. His Twitter feed was very bot-like.
It's
just adding
totally
people.
bought it. He's
Yeah.
also speaking in Farsi and Arabic to recruit troops from the fucking Afghan army to go into Ukraine to fight for the CIA. What the fuck are we talking about?
He's explicitly getting people out of the Taliban.
It's insane. I mean, this is all it like. If you had told me, if you had written this and you had put it in like an episode of 24, I would have been like, this is too far-fetched. This is retarded. What are we doing here? And they're like, no, this is my reality. Okay, this is the reality that we live through now. I can't even wrap my head around how people are like dealing with this information as if like this is all real life. I just feel like I'm losing my mind.
I think he's like a Rorschach test. What am I saying? Rorschach test.
Rorschach.
So like you see in it what you want to see, right? So the left looks at his Twitter feed like he's a Trump supporter, right? I was obviously like this guy's like Lindsey Graham, right? And then other people look at it and be like, wait a minute. This guy's doing so many things that are so off the wall, and the way he talks about Tulsi Gabbard, for example, or other people like that, it sounds also like Lindsey Graham in the other direction, right? And in a ways that you would be, oh man, this clearly gives a motive.
Well, and it appeared that the second person that had followed his account was a CIA agent.
Which is also interesting. Like, how bad of a CIA agent are you if you're like, I'm gonna follow my asset on X?
Well, that's not even a problem for them, because usually as soon as anything pops off, they just annihilate his entire social. I mean, look what they did with Crooks. All of his social media, he never even had one. He was a ghost. He's this 22-year-old, never had any social media profiles. What a novelty.
Strange.
So I don't think they worry about it, man. I think that like, yeah, she was probably his handler.
Well,
honestly,
what is the X policy that wiped his profile? Like, is that an X policy? Is that something that's been accounted for? I haven't heard anything about that. I saw it begged by that guy from that YouTube channel about it, but I don't. Yeah, no, it was before. It was another guy, but it was begged right off the bat, and no explanation I've seen so far.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were begging Elon to leave the account up just so that we can continue to be able to scrape his account and everything, because Facebook instantly deleted his stuff.
Why? Why is that a policy? It seems like a terrible policy.
Yeah.
They don't want copycats. They don't want the actual person to be able to delete content, I guess. So we're gonna just take it all down and basically like mothball it so that the officials can come in and handle their investigation. I think it's a terrible idea. I think you should leave that shit up. Let all I don't trust any of the agencies that are responsible for investigating these things. Citizen journalism is 100% better. So I even though there's problems with that too, obviously. I would prefer they just leave it all up.
Well, look at the first Trump assassination. It was much clearer information about what was going on X than it was on CNN. And in fact, CNN, the way they cover it is they say the new, and then thank you, Adam, for pointing this out, the new apparent Trump assassination bid is another dark moment with an unpredictable political consequences. That's their title of the first thing to release when this guy was waiting in the bushes.
Well, the first time a bullet came, less than an inch from killing Trump, they also said that he had tripped because of loud noises. So it's like
right.
He fell down.
Yeah, we have to pull down all of the alleged assassins' social media and rely exclusively on people who won't even acknowledge that there was an assassination attempt made on him. Like that seems really self-defeating to me. So yeah, it pissed me off that Elon would do that, and it makes me wonder if there isn't still immense pressure from the government into their censorship practices.
Totally. Guys, I'm curious what your thoughts are on this novel fact of this particular presidential assassination attempt, which is that this guy is still alive. Typically, the shooter doesn't get away. Right. So what do you think is going to happen here? He's obviously in custody in Florida. Ron DeSantis has clamped down saying, I'm not giving him to the feds. What's the significance of that piece?
It's very significant. I mean, if DeSantis actually stands tall and doesn't turn him over to the feds and keeps the guy alive, it's huge. I mean, that's like, I'm very skeptical. I'm very skeptical that he'll be alive come trial. Like, same with Diddy. I think all these dudes are like Walking Dead.
Jack Ruby situation.
Yeah. I mean,
one piece of it is
why would they allow him to I mean, especially what this guy was doing, like that's a really deep story for him to tell. Then I'm sorry to throw another wild angle in here, but what Diddy was doing was like building compromise on all of the richest and most powerful people in the country. And in this angle, like lots of politicians, but really lots of like Hollywood elite and lots of sports stars, because he was the black Jeffrey Epstein, so he's got a lot of black homies that were coming through and doing wild shit. So I think he's in a lot of trouble too. I really do.
Totally.
Well, and one of the things that the internet's still begging is how to understand this, right? How to understand this guy's crazy philosophy, all that kind of stuff. If he is as crazy as it is, it could be that they let him talk to demonstrate how crazy he is, and then we can continue to use him like a Rorschach.
So you're saying they go the Sirhan route,
right? Yeah, they keep him in the public eye, and then they can cast them. CNN can continue talking about him as if he's a Trump supporter, confusing the narrative, right? At that point, I mean, it just depends on how good this guy is going to be as a tool to keep this vague and undecipherable for the average.
But if he stops being useful, and then they end up Jack Rubying him, then it is such a clear Oswald situation. Like it's almost a direct parallel. Well, you have the entire story is so similar.
Yeah, I mean, let me pick at this analogy real quick though. Reuben Stein had a conspiracy theory that the reason why he kills Oswald is because he thought there was a conspiracy to kill all the Jews in America. Right, that was his motive. Right, so he himself was a crazy person. Right, like and broadly understood. Like, and definitely there's good evidence of the MK Ultraing of him. The guy who ran the MK Ultra program shows up at his.
He was a psychologist.
Actually investigates him and probably slips him, weapons grade amount of LSD or something like that. He gets crazier the longer they hold him. Right, so at first he has the whole thing where he's like, who are you guys? What are you guys doing on top of me? That sort of thing after he kills Oswald. Then after that, he gets crazier and crazier as it goes along. Now, he actually gets put to death by the government, right? In a trial. He gets tried and then put to death. I think that's more likely for this guy because he's a true believer, because he's in this circumstance he is of being probably psychotic. Now, did the government make him that way? We don't have any evidence of that. We don't know. But I think it's a reasonable case to say that the best strategy for them going forward will be to keep him out in the public eye.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting that you mentioned he could be put to death. Sorry, Clint, 2 seconds here. I heard that from a federal perspective, the charges that he will be held for would just be like weapons charges. However, in Florida, there's the ability to try him for more significant crimes and put him away for longer. But I didn't understand that the death penalty was on the table here. Am I misunderstanding that?
No. I'm saying Jack Ruby was put to death. This guy...
I know, specifically this guy, though.
Oh, well, then it wouldn't be a legal process, I assume, right, Clint?
Yeah.
we're saying
I don't think he meant the death penalty, like, after trial.
Yeah. This would be like he hung himself on 2 inches of underwear or something like that, right?
Right.
This would be him not killing himself.
This is on a doorknob at ground level.
Yeah, while plank sitting off the ground somehow,
real strong core.
Yeah,
you'd be surprised how many people do it that way. I don't know. Just weird how people are doing that.
That'll be an AP story because we got a new AP story that says that, quote, threats and assassination attempts come with the office Donald Trump once held and is seeking again. And what they talk about is a Syracuse University study that says assassination attempts happen way more often than you think, guys. We should be freaking out about this. Now that is narrative control, right? The AP, the Associated Press, these guys are the ones who are supposed to just be giving us facts. They're the ones who give the facts to the reporter to report on things.
Nope.
Wow.
No, AP is definitely a propaganda arm at this point.
Well, and there's another element too, because the CIA they have an acronym that they use for how they handle and how they motivate their field agents and their assets, and it's called RICE. It's reward, ideology, coercion, ego, and this guy right here is largely ideology, right? Like he's a religious zealot right here, and if they can just put the incentives in front of him however they need to, they can steer this guy in the directions that they would want to. That's the way that I would view him.
That's why I'm so confident that he was an asset to them, because this guy is like, he's the perfect mark for these people. Total true believer. I mean, he's writing books about it. He's writing books about basically CIA propaganda that he's completely convinced is all true. So, yeah, I mean, and then on top of that, his backdrop and the fact that he's allowed to travel all over the fucking world to recruit for these things. But then he gets to Ukraine and the actual battalions are like, this dude's too crazy. We can't allow him to go fight. I'm like, yeah, it just screams asset through and through. It really does.
Do you think that there's something with the 2002 charges that he had where he kind of became a patsy, like they picked him up in that moment?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that he didn't go to jail for decades, kind of tells you that he probably was like handed off to them at some point. And he had a lot more charges than that. If you actually look at his rap sheet, it's insane. This guy is really troubled, like deeply, deeply troubled. So I think he could have been on their radar from back then. I mean, you gotta actually put yourself back in those shoes. You guys are all younger than me, so imagine what 02 was like if you had fucking fully auto gun and you're making terroristic threats in 02 right after 9/11. You're going to prison for a long time. So the fact that they didn't do that tells me everything I need to know personally. And maybe that's just because my age and I had just become an adult when 9/11 happened, and I was like, and I remember how the world changed so dramatically. But in 02, if you were doing anything that could have possibly been labeled under terrorism, you were done. You were going away forever. So the fact that this guy didn't tells me a lot.
And we got the kind of trailing stories from this is people are picking up on a pattern. We have the supposed part 3, right, of the bomb dog thing that went viral for a little while. That might be fake news, right?
Yeah, my understanding is that, at least that's how the report is that the bomb threats were unfounded. But apparently,
I don't think that was a real story. Yeah. But I do think that the poisoning of Trump supporters from 3 days ago is a really interesting story that I don't know if we'll ever get answers on it, but you guys familiar with that?
Yeah. The Arizona rally, is that right?
I think it was. He's doing all these rallies, so I can't remember. I can't keep track of them, and I can't keep track of the assassination attempts either. But
it's just once a week. We're going to get so bored with it after a while.
How long ago was that Arizona one?
So as I understand it was that September 12th
was when
one the rally was held.
RFK
it was a week ago. Wow.
Okay, never mind. That's too recent.
Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. And what I understand is, what I've read of it is that there were a number of supporters sitting behind Trump on the side where he walked in, about 20 people who after the rally started feeling their eyes burning and stuff like that. And some of whom were admitted to the hospital for treatment because of these seeming chemical burn effects that they were having. I don't think Trump was affected at all, but it was certainly within his vicinity. And I mean, there's a news report on it from Tucson after the rally with interviews from some of these people who are still suffering effects from this. So, I mean, to me, that's a big question mark. And I think you're right, Clint. Will we ever get answers on it? I don't know. But really odd that they were all concentrated behind Trump and on the side where he came to the stage. I mean, you can't really make any conclusions about it, but it's very suspicious.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not attempting to make a conclusion. I'm just saying, all of these confluence of events, if you're not, I mean, even for us who aren't Trump supporters, you have to be losing your mind looking at this stuff. This is crazy to watch. And to the fact that we're, I tweeted this out a couple days ago. I feel like most of us that are paying attention are aware that a former and likely future president of the United States is actively being hunted by his own government. Like, that's
crazy.
That's how I feel like most Trump supporters also know this. And they're like, it's just so provocative. It's so dangerous to be doing this, and to have it be, in my opinion, so obvious that they're doing it and that they're not stopping, and that they don't really care that we know, and that then they're going to handle the investigation into themselves, so they think that they can get away with it. But I think Trump supporters don't trust these people like they used to. These are not the back the blue, thin blue line folks that they once were. They do not trust particularly the federal cops. They do not trust them at all at this junction. So I think they're playing with fire, man. And then the other interesting angle that I take is, and that I think any of us probably take is that the plan? Are they trying to do they not care because they want us to pop off and go nuts? And I don't know what the answer is in that regard, but it makes me nervous as hell.
Well, where does it end? Okay, so say Trump gets elected. Do they stop hunting him then? I doubt it.
Nope.
Yeah, well, and then the stakes get higher and higher every time we're left with these unquestioned, unanswered, suspicious situations where if there's a stolen election accusation that's credible in any dimension, such as ballots all of a sudden coming in the middle of the night from a single district that's 100% Democrat or something like that.
That would never happen.
Yeah, I'm not saying YouTube algorithm that the election was stolen. I'm just saying that if credible accusations came up, a lot of people are going to leap to the conclusion right here. If he dies in office from something unsuspicious, a lot of people are going to leap to a conclusion. Now that's why Candace Owens this week came out with her anti-Vance perspective, which is Vance is not radical enough in his anti-war stances. Therefore, Trump needs a new VP
Thomas
candidate.
Massey or Vivek or something like that.
Yeah.
She's
Very
right, by the way. If you look at our geopolitical system the way I do, and apparently the way Candace does, and it's the military-industrial complex that is really what runs things, and Trump, in my opinion, because he wasn't that much of a dissident. He wasn't that much of a disruptor. The main thing he did was I don't really want to go to full on war with Iran or Russia. He's like, I'll take out Soleimani. How about we just take out Soleimani? We don't have to invade Iran. Which, by the way, I didn't agree with that decision. I was terrified. It could have launched us into a world war back then. But I honestly believe that's why they hate Trump more than anything else, is that he just genuinely doesn't really go along with what they want with geopolitical strategery, as George W. Bush might say. So yeah, I agree with Candace on that analysis. And I said it when he picked JD Vance. I was like, oh, cool. Hardcore Iran hawk. You're dead. You're screwed, dude. So I think it was a mistake. And I think that a guy like Massey would have been better. And honestly, the fact that Candace says that is awesome, because Thomas Massey's the greatest congressman since Ron Paul, and it's not really close. So yeah, I'm disappointed. But Vance isn't bad. I'm not even, people will hear me say this and they'll be like, oh, you despise Vance. It's no, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, yeah, if you're trying to stay alive, if you think that the federal government is hunting you because you won't go to war with Iran, well, then maybe you don't give them a backup plan that definitely would go to war with Iran. Yeah. That's all I'm saying.
There is also the question, too, of if Trump dies, or even this is a question for once he leaves political life and we're outside of the post-Trump era, there's been this big tent that's been forming that's the MAGA people, a bunch of libertarians, the dissident tech folks. There's this big tent that's kind of coming together, but they're still glued by the cult of personality that is Trump. And once he leaves, what happens to that ideological vacuum? Do they continue this alliance that's been forming, or does it all of a sudden dissolve into civil war? Right?
Yeah, it's a great question. And is that alliance is it in its early stages or its end stages? Does it just come together to get Trump into power, and then do they discard all of us? Mm-hmm. I'm throwing you guys in there. I'll just speak for myself. I would prefer to see him win over Kamala Harris. For sure. Just being honest.
100%. Yeah.
Wait, I thought Chase Oliver was going to win, guys. I thought that was
right.
Exactly. Chase, what's going on here?
Yeah, well, look, any libertarian that wants to vote for Chase Oliver, I'm totally fine with that. I'm just saying, outcome, I prefer Trump wins.
Right.
100% prefer that. So, he's offering this libertarian MAGA alliance thing. He came to our convention. I was sitting, 15 feet away as he said it. So it's like, he definitely, that's the angle that they're offering, that they're taking. So I think that the longevity of it is really dependent on how he utilize, like if he wins, if he survives, if he gets in there, and then if he uses libertarians to actually move the ball down the field, well, then that alliance has real life to it. If all of those things happen. Now, maybe none of those things happen. I don't know at this point, but I think that's really going to answer your question.
Well, I think there was a Tucker's tour that he's doing right now has been featuring a lot of RFK. Yeah. And in those, RFK's message has been pretty consistently, Trump has changed. We're heading in a new direction when it comes to staff. We're heading in a new direction when it comes to who's heading up agencies. He's promised me X, Y, Z very publicly. And I think if Trump wants to hold together kind of the dissident coalition he's pulled together for his legacy, for the person who's going to come after him, whether it's Vance or son or whoever kind of picks up the MAGA banner after
Barron Trump. Yep, yeah, that's what we're going for.
he will need to follow through on that promise. Otherwise,
I want
he's
the Nephilim to rule over me.
All right. Speaking of God Kings, one has fallen. The diddler has been arrested, charged with multiple counts of sex trafficking, racketeering, which most people don't know what racketeering is. We should dig into that. Kidnapping, arson, bribery, distribution of narcotics, transportation to engage in prostitution, and he was denied bail of $50 million.
Best I can tell, racketeering is just doing business with your homies and not telling the government about it.
Yeah. That's specifically illegal business.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, not telling the government about it. That's illegal.
We in the raid. One of the side stories that was funny was the finding of 2,000 bottles of baby oil.
Hell yeah, dude. That's how I start off every Friday night.
Did you see the 50 Cent tweet?
Yes.
50 Cent tweeted out something that was like, and I didn't even need 1,000 bottles of lube.
Yeah, he's like, here I am being friends with Drew Barrymore. Didn't even need the lube.
3 ARs that were with defaced serial numbers and a drum magazine seized.
There shouldn't be serial numbers on ARs. Oh, unpopular opinion. Anyways, go ahead.
Well, yeah,
that sounds base to me.
Still, muy illegal. Can't be doing that. What was he planning to do with these ARs and drum magazine?
Hang out at Trump's golf course.
He's next man up.
He was going to go recruit for the Free Syrian Army and then the Azov Battalion.
He just got really into foreign policy. He's just like out there in Ukraine.
So I read the indictment, and one of the things I thought was interesting was what's not in the indictment. He isn't actually charged with blackmail. Now, it mentions on page 7 specifically that Combs recorded his freak-offs and then used them as collateral for compliance. Right?
Well, then how is that not blackmail?
Right, but he doesn't get charged with blackmail. So what's going on there? I have a couple theories, but I wanted to hear what your guys' reaction to that is.
First of all, I'm not cool. Can somebody describe for me what a freak off is? Is that just like an orgy or something?
Yeah, man. It's when you get together with all your homeboys and you bring in a whole bunch of ladies from all over the country, and then you guys just throw a couple thousand bottles of lube in the center and you go to town on one another.
It's not just ladies. They're shipping in male prostitutes as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I mean, Diddy's got to have fun, too. I mean, he was demolishing Meek Mill on the regular, which is like devastating to me because Dreams and Nightmares is one of the greatest rap songs that's ever existed and was like my number one get pumped for the gym track. And now every time I listen to it, I'm like, oh no, daddy.
Oh shit.
Sucks.
Hide your kids, hide your wife.
That was in my basketball playlist in high school. Yeah.
Thank you, dude. See, you know what's up.
That's exactly what you mean.
That's a banger of a track. And now I'm just like, oh man, really? And then on top of that, I'm pretty sure that Diddy was responsible for taking out one of my other favorite rappers in Tupac. So it's like, yeah, this guy's been look, again, this strikes me as very obvious because he has been a pretty obvious criminal for 30 years since the mid 90s.
Right.
This guy's been doing really criminal stuff, in my opinion. And the fact that he stayed basically in the good graces, and he became a billionaire with Ciroc, and he's doing all this stuff. I mean, he's crushing it. And then, as I posted last night, like he's doing this vote or die, get out the vote campaign. And he's totally embraced by all of the Democratic establishment, because we all know what he's doing. Like, the 20 to 25-year-old demographic are the stupidest in the country. They're all going to vote for the Democrats, or 70% of them are going to vote for the Democrats. 30% of you are cool. And then, like, he gets political protection because of that. Like, is that not obvious to everybody? That's why. Do you think that Diddy cares about who's winning elections, other than the fact that it provides him some sort of protection as he continues to run his blackmail operation, which is clearly what it is. And in my opinion, as to why they wouldn't be listing that as a charge at this junction, is like, oh no, the blackmail operation was the compromise that he was building for the federal government to use against famous people to get them in line to then go out and support the candidates that they want them to. Hey, Taylor Swift, coming out hard in the paint for Kamala Harris. Yeah, I think you may have done something illegal too. I'm just going to say it outright. I think you have. So yeah, that's what I think all this is. I think, and yes, I know, once again, I mean, you guys are just throwing all the crazy topics at me. So your audience that isn't familiar with me is going to think that I'm a lunatic, and that's fine. I don't really care. But like, all of these stories, in my opinion, are like 3-letter agency ran, or puppeted at the top. And that's why they last so long. Like, you don't get to do what Diddy was doing for 30 years if you aren't connected to the political establishment that's going to keep you safe. Whether it's 3-letter agencies or it's just the Democrat politicians that are keeping you in the good graces of the law. I don't know which, but I would guess 3-letter agencies.
Well, it's so similar to Epstein too, where you have Epstein's this guy that comes out of Yale and then gets into arms dealing, ends up being on Wall Street, and then has this island with and becomes, has his girl Ghislaine Maxwell, who just happens to be the daughter of this big British media tycoon who just happened to fall off his yacht naked in the Atlantic Ocean. You have this thing where you have, like, he just jumps from thing to thing to thing, right? And you're like, okay, so there's clearly something going on. He stays out of jail all this time, and then Diddy's just the same type of element. It's the same pattern that we're watching.
He's doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's doing almost the exact same thing. Except I think there was probably more children involved in the Epstein operation than there was with the Diddy operation. But this is preliminary. It could end up being worse than that. I don't know.
Yeah. So there are no minors. There's no minors accusation at all in the indictment. Which, I'm not sure if, like, Little Rod or the other, was that right? Yeah,
Lil Rod. What a name for this.
Every time. Doesn't I'm not sure if any of the other accusations are from the woman that brought forth the first set of charges mentions any minors activities. Other than that, there's a lot of internet speculation about Justin Bieber and Usher before Usher was of age.
Yeah. Well, there's creepy videos of Diddy and also Usher with Bieber. Like,
right.
What was the video with Diddy? It was just like he was like having him call him daddy or something, if I remember right. It was strange. Yeah. It was odd.
He
adopted talking a kid about, like, sleepovers too?
Yeah, it's like, you're gonna sleep over here.
Yeah.
It was just weird.
Yeah. Well, it's very weird for me in particular, because, like, I am of the age where I was watching a lot of this stuff as it happened. Not necessarily, like, I don't remember these individual clips per se, but I'm saying, like, I was paying attention to this as a white kid from the suburbs who loved rap music. I was paying attention to this stuff, and to, like, look back on it and just be like, yeah, like, all my heroes were either gay or CIA. It's weird. It's super weird, man.
You're late for that's a defining characteristic of your late 30s, early 40s. It's just like, everyone I liked is gay or CIA.
Gay.
Well, how did that happen?
Yeah, it's like, am I the only straight person I knew? Like, how is this possible?
So one of the theories of why there's no blackmail that I've been able to generate, at least, is that you don't rely on the videos as evidence. And if you don't rely on the videos as evidence, you don't have to go through evidentiary protocol with the videos, right? So if you rely mostly on the other things that have happened, such as physical abuse and these other things, you can chart that through witness testimony easier, and you can chart that without having to do discovery and reveal to a jury or other sources of leaks about who else is in the videos. Now, there is ways to deal with, like, sensitive material like that in a trial where you transcript the videos basically, and then give it to a trial to a jury or prosecute based upon that. And you can then censor out, Jennifer Lopez was there or something like that. Those sorts of scenarios are handleable, but they create more opportunities for us. So if you focus on the sex trafficking of moving prostitutes, if you focus on racketeering, kidnapping, arson, bribery, then you're in a situation where you can put them away, right? In theory, and just pretending it straight up for a moment, and it's not an op. All these things then become trialable without having to really dig into who's in the videos, who was there, who knew that isn't directly related to the crime, and these would technically be victims too. I mean, to think of it that way as well. If you're one of the people who are brought to the freak off because you're trying to advance your career, and that's one of the leverageable points Diddy has over you. There's good reasons to protect that from the public, other than the fact of if you're in on it to some degree, and then does the public have a right to know?
Yeah, well, for the audience that's maybe slightly less red-pilled than all of us, I think that you don't run these operations to turn around and prosecute all the people that you catch doing illicit stuff on video. You run these operations so that you can hold these videos over their heads for the rest of their lives. So you don't want to use these videos in this trial because you want to be able to continue to use that as leverage to manipulate them and to, continue to control the narrative through Hollywood, through, music, all that. So I don't think that they're going to, I think it's going to be the same thing with Epstein. I think that those videos probably ain't ever coming out, and those people will never be prosecuted, but they will be riding hard for Kamala. I promise you that.
Well, there's a certain narrative control, and we saw the same thing with Epstein too, where everybody wants to hyper focus on specific details of what happened. Like for Epstein, it's the pedophilia. Everybody hyper focuses on that. But really, there's a much larger thing at play, is that there's this whole blackmail ring, and it's is it an op? That's really the big question. But if everybody hyper focuses on the one thing, it's just he had an island with a bunch of young girls that people were coming out to, and then we stop it there. And Diddy will be the same thing. A little bit more
complicated.
Yeah, Diddy will be the same way, where it'll just be oh, he beat somebody up. Oh, he had a bunch of guns that didn't have serial numbers. Yeah. Oh, and then we won't get into the
details. Did you hear the audio of him having sex with those dudes? And it's that's not the story here.
Yeah, exactly.
It really isn't. Even though it's funny.
I just think of LeBron James having that phone, the FaceTime with Diddy. He's like, ain't no party like a Diddy party. And I'm like, oh boy, that is not age well.
Yeah, a lot of those videos are coming out.
And I'm also a Lakers fan, so I can't even have that.
Come on,
your
man.
team's gay.
They're all gay or CIA, bro. Everybody I love. It sucks.
That might be the title of the episode now. They're all gay or CIA.
Everything is gay with Clint Russell.
Perfect.
All my haters say that already, so it's perfect.
All right.
Speaking of coming out for Kamala, I don't know if you guys saw this. I think Ian Carroll dropped a video on it late last night about Kevin Liles, the chairman of 300 Entertainment, and involved with Warner Music Group as well. He stepped down yesterday, the day after all the Diddy stuff happened with his arrest. And in his memo where he was writing about why he stepped down, and this is a guy who's very heavily connected with all the inner workings of the music industry, he said it was because he was going to go campaign on behalf of Kamala. So what is the coincidence there?
Oh wow.
This guy drops out to go support the candidate.
Imagine if this dude's just really blue pilled and a total idiot, and it's really the timing's coincidental. He's just that sucks.
Oh no,
big mistake, homeboy, because Ian Carroll's going to blow your name up for the rest of eternity.
Straight up.
Yeah, I'm buddies with Ian at this point, and I think he's probably onto something.
Well, yeah, because
he tends to be.
Yeah, what is that? What is that thing where you just get all of these people? Because there's a question to me: is how many people are kind of captured, and how many people are true believers and zealots, especially in the celebrity kind of elite?
Exactly, dude. It's so hard to know. I mean, that's why the Florida assassin looks like a true believer to me. He really does. He also looks crazy, but that also doesn't mean that you're not an op, that you're not so I think that's the key to propagandizing your people. Is that I forget which famous propagandist said this, but it was once no one knows what's true, our job will be done. That's where we're at. Like we cannot. It's very, very challenging to decipher the truth, which is what makes us all feel crazy. And a lot of people just give up in pursuit of truth because they can't be confident in it anymore, and they kind of just turn off everything, and they just go like, I'm not going to pay attention. I can't do this anymore. It's too like this is too crazy. And I understand that sentiment. You know, as someone who covers this stuff full time, it's like, yeah, this is taxing. Like this is it drains you because you're like, I'm just being lied to all the time. So I think that's kind of what the issue is that after 2012 in particular, with the reauthorization of the NDAA and making it so that it's legal for the federal government to propagandize the American people the way that they had been propagandizing foreigners. Sorry, foreigners. I didn't give a shit about that until they started doing it to me. Now I know how dramatic it is. Like, it sucks to feel this way. But yeah, I think it's a really bad idea, really dangerous precedent. And to me, it's crystal clear that's what they're doing to us. I mean, we are being propagandized by our government very aggressively. And for someone who's of my age, if you're younger, it may not feel so stark in contrast, but like from the 90s to now, it's crazy. Like, they were propagandizing us then too, but I think it was genuinely illegal and it was harder for them to do. Now it's just like every story is a lie. It just is a matter of gradient, like how much of a lie it is.
Adam in the chat said that was a Orwell quote that you said.
No federal agency can be effective without cooperation of local law enforcement. Best to be chummy with the sheriff, especially if things go a certain way. That's what
definitely. That's
just an Adamism, actually.
Yeah, there we go. Thanks, Adam. All right. So if we plumb the depths of P. Diddy on this one, we'll move on.
Are we not saying phrasing anymore?
Thank you, Bennett. Thank you.
We don't have the sound deck today, man.
All right. The last story. What's going on with these pagers exploding? What is happening with this, Dave?
So in Lebanon this week, over 2 days, 12 people were killed and 3,000 people were injured by exploding pagers. Estimates about 1/3 of them were civilians. Soon after, the day after, which is yesterday, another wave of exploding walkie-talkies. 20 killed and 450 people injured.
I love it. One third of them were civilians, and you've just seen like all of the pro-Israel propagandists come out going, these are the most targeted strikes you've ever seen in your effing life, and you're still going to condemn them?
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, 1/3 was civilians, and we're like, it's all good, totally fine. And then always the justification is war is hell, as if that's like some profound statement that justifies all terrorism or all war crimes. It's like, no, war is hell. That's why I oppose it, actually. So you're not gonna defeat my arguments by saying war is hell, Clint. But yeah, it's yes, I understand the angle on it, particularly that they're staging on their border to invade Lebanon right now. It makes a lot of sense to me that, like, what are you going to do? You're going to run this operation days prior to the ground invasion so that you can take out their communications lines. All of them are horrified to pick up a walkie-talkie, to page each other, probably to use a cell phone, probably to cook breakfast in the morning. They think they're going to friggin' stove is going to blow up. So if you're preparing to invade, this is the time to do it. You take out a whole bunch of their command structure. Mm-hmm. So I think that's what we saw. And I think that the precedent is very dangerous, contrary to what all these other people are saying, that, whatever, it's genius, it's tactical, it's blah, 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 it's innovative. What they did was they took a shipment that was coming in, they repackaged it under a Taiwanese brand, which just obliterated their brand name forevermore in the Middle East. It was funneled through Europe, so almost certainly broader NATO umbrella was involved in this operation, I would imagine, but maybe not. Maybe Mossad can do it all on their own. I don't know. And then those pagers get in there, and then they detonate them simultaneously, regardless of having any idea who's adjacent to them at that time.
Well, the funny thing is, okay, so the company was called Gold Apollo out of Taiwan. They licensed their stuff to BAC Consulting KFT, which is registered in Hungary, right? And the website for KFT, BAC Consulting is, quote, works on projects as varied as cybersecurity, telecommunications, and jewelry. And they're like, that seems legit. Give me 500 of those. No physical presence, according to Hungary and the government there. It's such an obvious shell company. I mean, it is. I mean, obviously after the fact, right? But whatever the op was, whether it was through this, which it does appear to be that, because there's only one person tied to that company, and they're missing. They haven't been in their apartment for months, according to reporters from the Financial Times. So it's like
it's a Mossad op.
Definitely. I mean, but what was funny about the Ben Shapiro thing you quoted here, Clint, too, immediately coming out to defend it before Israel's actually even taken responsibility for it. Right.
Because they all know. They all know exactly what they just saw. Because this is Mossad's MO. You know, they do really, really high tech, advanced black ops is basically like what they specialize in. So, but there's a major downside to this. Like the Middle Eastern world is now broadly going to be turning themselves towards China for their supply chain as opposed to Europe. Like, that's not good for the Western world. Does anybody care? Apparently not. No one cares. But like there was reports coming out that like record breaking orders of cell phones, pagers, everything else coming from the Middle East to China, which is the opposite of what it used to be, where they were getting a lot of their stuff from Europe. So the reason I bring that up is that like this is the same exact decision-making process that we've recklessly made. I say we, as like the broader West, have made in the past few decades that has driven Russia into the arms of China too. You know, by kicking them off of SWIFT and doing all of this, like basically nuclear weapons grade financial, sanction regime against them. Like we are creating the bipolar world order as we allegedly are defending the unipolar moment. It's like, this is all self-defeating. And I just feel like no one's like, I'm just a guy in Florida. If I can see this, why can't our State Department representatives see that that's what they're doing? Then it begs the question, is that what they're doing? And is that the intention? I don't know. I tend to think that it's just hubris and bravado, and they think that they're going to be able to cow all of these people and then kill them if they don't go along with it. But I think they're wrong. And I think that like what we're witnessing is a very significant paradigm shift where you're going to have Russia, the largest nuclear power on Earth, right next to us, that is now in bed with the largest population nation and arguably the largest economy a few decades from now or less. It's very dangerous. It's very, very dangerous.
So anyway, we know that the military is building up war plans for that, and we'll be covering that in the skiff today as well. So become a member. Check it out. One of the questions is, why is now? I think, Clint, your theory on an impending invasion is legit. There's been a consistent back and forth on the northern border since October.
Sure.
There isn't a clear devastating blow by either side so far. We have covered repeatedly how Hezbollah is kind of sitting there and obviously firing rockets, but it hasn't really been like the early 2000s invasion of Lebanon by Israel, where they went in and was devastated and then got basically trapped and bogged down in Lebanon against guerrilla fires like Hezbollah. And there's been a lot of coverage over Hezbollah is not like Hamas. They're not in the same situation. They're in a much different situation when it comes to supply, when it comes to troops and ability to organize. This does disrupt, but on the other side of it, if Israel does decide to go in, what is the motive for doing that? How does that help them secure their war aims? This week, Israel added a war aim of basically resecuring the north from rocket attack, specifically because you have all these people, Israelis, who have been kicked out of their house for almost a year now, who are now putting pressure on the government to do something about it. And what is the president of Israel going to do? Is he going to go for peace? Oh, of course not, because as soon as he does that, then he's going to go back into being tried for violating their constitution and racketeering and corruption charges that he has. So what's he going to do? He's going to have to set up a war in Lebanon too.
But see, here's the danger that once again, it's just reckless behavior that I feel like no one seems to think two steps ahead. But like, this is a similar setup to like a 48 style war where they counter, like they're already bogged down, obviously in Gaza. Then they invade Lebanon. Well, then what if one of their neighbors says, hey, now it's time to to counterstrike. Let's invade them from, the southwest or the southeast or the northeast or whatever. Like they've got a lot of neighbors that don't like them very much. And then now you have a 3-front war. You think the Israelis can fight that on their own? I don't think so. Not at this junction.
Yeah, that feels like a tinderbox that's ready to set for something much
larger. Yeah,
bro.
And I'm just, like, do you guys want, like, the whole reason for this war is to, maintain a nation for your people. Like that's the argument, at least. And it just seems like this behavior is the most danger that is presented towards the Israel project, broadly speaking, that you could possibly be taking. Like the obvious answer to me is to be working towards peace, not to be working towards inflaming tensions further with your neighbors and potentially opening up a 3rd or 4th front for this war.
But that also raises the question then of, is continuing to open up all these different conflicts just a way of trying to force the West's hand to get more involved?
Well, right? Exactly right. And I think that the answer is yes.
That seems to be the Netanyahu strategy here.
Yeah. It's been Netanyahu's strategy for 30 years. I think that's what the war on terror was largely fought over.
Iran's about to get that nuclear weapon any day.
Yeah,
now.
Exactly.
Well, democracy has spread through the region since we took out Hussein.
Yeah. Exactly. It's gone great. It's gone great. We've been celebrated as heroes and liberators. I don't know if you guys heard, but
they love us over there.
Yeah, but I mean, this, like, people will say that it's like anti-Semitism for me to bring this up, but it's not. Like, yeah, Netanyahu came to America and propagandized us and propagandized our politicians for decades to get us into these wars in the Middle East that basically any rational person looking at them goes, oh, these were catastrophic. Not just for the Middle East, but also for us, financially, morally, militarily. But you know who it did kind of benefit? Not us. It benefited Israel. It did. So that's not anti-Semitic to point that out. Like, hey, we fought a bunch of wars that your prime minister came over and was like, "Yo, this is a great idea. This is gonna work out perfectly." If I'm not allowed to point that out and go like, "Hey, fuck that guy," that's not cool.
Yeah.
That's how I feel.
Well, and it's we have this new America First movement, and it seems like the younger folks in that crowd kind of get this, but the older folks in that crowd are still like America First, as soon when it was happening with Ukraine, and then all of a sudden the Israel stuff happens, and it's like, well, they're basically America too, right?
Well, the sad part though is that a lot of the America First, and a lot of the America First are good non-interventionist folks, and I'm not talking about them, but a lot of the America First people that come under that brand name, capital A, capital F, are like, you can't just be critical of the nation of Israel or Netanyahu. You have to be critical of Jewish people more broadly. And I think that is totally self-defeating and counterproductive to what I am trying to do here, which is what makes me so mad that like that baggage comes with the arguments that I'm making, because the arguments I'm making are not at all directed towards Jewish people. It is just directed towards Israel and Netanyahu. So anyways, I just wanted to make that distinction.
Well, and that's an intentional
important
confusion.
People understand that.
Right. That's an intentional confusion cultivated by people like Ben Shapiro, who have said, if you oppose Israel, it's because you're anti-Semitic, period. And that's the only way to conceptualize that, right? That is an effort of narrative control to shame people out of being able to talk about what a government is doing, right? And if you're Israeli and you're sitting there saying, no, my vision of being able to live in my home in the northern side of Israel was not for you to invade Lebanon, right? My vision was we would get to peace, and then I could live in a peaceful, prosperous society, right? It's got to be very disappointing for a lot of the people who were tracking the Bibi's, potential fall only 2 years ago of, all the corruption charges, massive protests in the streets, to then say, well, now he's pretty much in power as long as they're at war. That's a very bad set of perverse incentives.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, the Daryl Cooper interview that happened is what Daryl Cooper and Tucker Carlson were trying to do was trying to point out these mythologies that cloud our judgment. And we have this massive mythology that looms over the Israel conflict, which is the Holocaust and World War II. And it's just like Hamas is just like Hitler, and they're going to do the exact same things. And it clouds our judgment from being able to make any reasonable adult decisions in this matter, as we're slowly becoming, not even slowly, financially anymore, as we're just going into bankruptcy with the country right now. And we just keep going more spending, more aid, more everything right here. And they keep just dragging us into conflict after conflict.
Well, and lastly, because of I know Ben Shapiro came out. I know I'm dogging on him a lot today, but Ben Shapiro came out and said,
because you're anti-Semitic.
This is the most incredible target attack of all time. Well, what happens to those 2,000 something people who are injured? Do you think they go like, I'm really want peace with Israel now, right? The question is the terrorist math question. And this is classic Robert Pape dying to win. The reason why people do terrorist attacks is almost always, and this is a very high correlation, is almost always, thank you. That really interrupted me. Sorry about that. It's almost always a sense that you don't control your own country, that you can't be free in your own country because you have a dominant political force from outside that is controlling you. And if you're in this situation, you're like, I can't use a cell phone anymore because I don't know if that's the next one that the Israelis are going to blow up. That atmosphere, and not to mention, you blew up my sister's arms or my cousin's legs or whatever, that atmosphere is going to create way more Hezbollah fighters. And so what's the plan? You know what I mean? I mean, that's like where the whole "this is a genius move" thing just falls apart for me. Because what if this doubles the size of Hezbollah's recruiting ability, right? Because
it's perpetual war, David. I think that might even be part of the plan. Is just continue the conflict.
And that's what does that say? And if you're an Israeli or an Israeli supporter, what does that say for you? That means you never get to go back to peace, like a relative peace for you. And
every Israeli is forced to enlist. So for them, that means a lot more than it does to an American. That we've been in war basically my entire life, but because I was never forced to fight it, that toll is not as profoundly felt. But for the Israelis, it's profoundly felt. So I think this is why you saw such. I mean, there's many reasons, but part of the reasons that they were had Netanyahu on the ropes and he was about to be ousted. And I also think that's another driving factor to maintaining this war footing forever is that as long as the war is going on, Netanyahu ain't going anywhere. So I think there's lots. I mean, there's so many variables that go into this. But at the end of the day, I genuinely, at the end of the day, same thing with Ukraine. Like more than anything, I want to see peace in all of these regions. But more than even that, is that I don't want to be funding it and I don't want my people being sent to fight these wars. And it seems like that's what we're getting closer and closer and closer to. Like we've already been funding a tremendous amount of all of this bloodshed, but we're getting dangerously close. I don't know if you guys saw the video of the munitions depot in Russia that exploded, but that thing goes off like a mushroom cloud. That snap sound is exactly what you hear when a nuke goes off. I still haven't, got confirmation that it was just regular munitions depot that exploded just like a nuke. Okay, maybe. But for someone like me who's been concerned about this thing escalating into nuclear exchange, to see that footage was the scariest moment I've had in years. I mean, it's like I genuinely, when I saw that, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to wake up and find that there's been, full nuclear war or 6 nuclear weapons that have been exchanged by the time I wake up the next day. Right. I genuinely feel like that's what we're dealing with, and that's how close we are to this stuff. And no one seems to talk about it. No one seems to care. It's just a remarkable time to be alive.
Well, they put the word tactical in front of the word nuke, so therefore it's pretty precision right now.
It's no big deal. It's tactical.
Adam says this is why Clint needs to visit Montana, get prepped for nuclear winter.
Although we got a lot of nukes here. We might be a target location.
Yeah, we are in the sponge zone.
I was like, aren't you the sponge?
Yeah.
That's why I'm spending so much time in Washington. I just wanted to get out for a week or so.
And I do recommend people check out the Nuclear War, A Scenario by Annie Jacobson if you want to get a grasp of it. Also, Scott Horton has his book, Hotter than the Sun, which is a great way of, it's really great argumentation for the problems, like the strategic problems, while her book is much more about what is the devastation caused by a nuclear bomb going off and what that scenario on scale looks like.
I actually recommend people don't read those books because it has ruined my life.
Totally fair.
I mean, to know the risk that we face with that stuff is so scary. And I always am the type that wants to know the truth, unfortunately. So, I'm not advising people to remain ignorant necessarily, because I think if we all knew what I did about the dangers of nuclear war, we would all be in the streets going like, these wars have to stop, or at least we have to stop being involved with them in any way.
It is wild just how much of the population will freak out if you talk about nuclear power. They'll be like, but nukes, we can't have nukes. It's so dangerous.
Exactly.
It's Mile Island.
Well,
but then those same people are completely asleep to a direct confrontation with Russia right now, with U.S. troops on the border of Ukraine right now, under their secret troops. Don't worry, we're their advisors or something like that. They don't count, except for they do every time we decide they do. When that happens, these people are completely unaware of it. But nuclear war, they're very vigilant. Nuclear power, they're very vigilant about.
The body count from nuclear power is in the double digits. The body count from nuclear war is in the 100,000s. What is our priority? Like how is your focus on the nuclear power risk angle and not nuclear weapons? Like, are you fucking retarded? Sorry, I don't want to get you kicked off YouTube, but like, you're an absolute imbecile if you're really concerned about 3 Mile Island or Fukushima or, like that's not the issue. It's Hiroshima and Nagasaki, you imbecile. So it drives me crazy that there's not more of a like just outraged anti-war movement in this country. It drives me nuts.
At least one of the other casualties of this attack is the rules-based international order, in the sense that the rules are supposed to be in the Geneva Convention and in the UN Treaty for Disarmament of Booby Traps, which this is. And it reads specifically that the protocols on prohibitions or restrictions for the use of mines, booby traps, and other devices was all created in 1996. This would qualify probably under that. And this is a mass use of it on scale that we haven't seen before, ever, right? That was done, and the reaction from so much of the American public was, wow, how innovative. And then for for the Geneva Convention, and John Brennan, the former CIA director, agrees with this, that it is an indiscriminate attacks are prohibited by the Geneva Convention, and this would qualify under that, because you can't control specifically which pager did it, because it was probably, the guess is probably it was done by an update that it then updates itself and then puts in a new software patch that then heats up the battery and then explodes the device. So because you can't control exactly who's getting what when, you're in a situation where you're doing that. Now that's a bit of a trap, because if they start doing that cell phones, and they're like, well, we can target the exact cell phone and tell it to blow up when we decide it should.
Well, by the way,
still, very dangerous.
I have to connect this dot for you guys, because it's so crazy. John Brennan was actually the one that was responsible for giving the fake passports to the Saudi operatives that are ultimately carried out 9/11. I learned this from Mike Benz over the past few days, so shout out to him. Another buddy of mine. I have all of the greatest conspiracy theorist buddies. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a good collection. Really Ian Carroll, Mike Benz. It's a good collection.
Yeah, it's helped with my resource, or my information gathering, but it has also made me a total lunatic, which is not a good thing. But anyways, point being, the dude in Florida, the Trump assassin, like according to his posts, I don't know if he actually had this capacity, but what he was doing was basically getting fake passports for the Afghan fighters to come into Ukraine to fight the Russians. He was doing the John Brennan role in that conflict. Wow. I mean, that is crazy. And then like John Brennan goes on, I think he became the head of the CIA, right?
Yeah. Former CIA director.
So there you go. I just wanted to connect the dots one more time as to why I think that dude was an op.
Now he works for Today.
Yep.
Now he's a media personality. Yeah.
And last part, at least one other element of this I wanted to note is the wow, how cool thing is so short-sighted in the sense of, if this is now a new standard of war, how dangerous that makes the international global scene, how dangerous that makes the basics of what we would consider to be like what's reliable when it comes to buying consumer electronics, how devastating that is for that industry. And then the sheer dehumanization of random people in Lebanon, right? I mean, you get this video of a guy at the store and he gets blown up, but so does the guy sitting across the counter from him. And just that moral incalculus of it doesn't matter because they're in the wrong country. And that's just a sad state of affairs.
These are the most surgical strikes we've ever seen in modern warfare. I don't know why you're continuing to bring this up as if like, oh, collateral damage. Sure. What do you want them to just, You want Israel to disappear? Is that what you want?
Yeah,
Sorry,
we used to drone strike weddings. Now we can just like use cell phone bombs at weddings.
Yeah,
like,
it's so much better.
You
right?
see
So
how
much better,
easy it is
right?
to be a Shapiro Daily Wire shill? What I just did there, like it's so easy. It's so obvious. The script just writes itself, but it's like it's also so stupid. But it's successful somehow. I don't know how, but it really is.
Well, how long until we are using pager bombs to strike quote unquote terrorists inside of the United States? How long until, because we always have this sort of like cascading effect, right, of things that are used to fight terror overseas inevitably end up getting used at home. And so how long until domestic terrorists are targets for some of these same technologies?
Dude. LP&H, don't get any new cell phones, guys. Reed is another good friend of mine, and he was posting about it. He's like, I'm never getting a new cell phone. I was like, smart, don't.
Smart.
But I mean, that's like they just went and harassed, Jeremy Kauffman, and from my understanding, a handful of other, reps that have ran the LP&H account at some point, and it's like. Yeah, this is where we're at. Like, we have a secret police force in America that if you say words on the internet that are no-nos, that they will come and harass you and potentially, bring charges against you and lock you up. And it's like, so if we're already living in that paradigm, then that means that the, counterterrorism strategy that everyone's applauding right now as it happens 6,000 miles away could be happening 6 miles away or 6 inches away from you in a matter of 6 or 7 years. Sorry to go 666, but we are living in the end times. Anyways, you know what I'm saying? It's like, so like I'm never going to applaud seeing any sort of collateral damage in any warfare anywhere ever. And I think that it really demonstrates a level of pampered lifestyle, total inoculation from the dangers of war, the actual human costs and consequences. And every time I hear someone, and I've seen some of my friends that have taken this tack, Cernovich, Phil Labonte, bunch of people that I respect and like that are coming out going like, this is awesome. F these people. And it's like, dude, you guys are not thinking. You're just not thinking.
Well, maybe Bennett, you can put this in post. The Jeremy Kauffman video is pretty interesting. For people that don't know, it has 34.8 million views on Twitter right now, which is crazy. Jeremy Kauffman's libertarian out of New Hampshire, Free State Project guy, right?
Yep.
And he had two
Live free or die.
Yeah, he had two FBI guys come up to his house and just kind of harass him. And what was was it just because of Twitter posts? Like, was that the situation? Yes. And they just came to check in on him?
It was a Twitter post. I don't know if I should say it because I could get you in trouble.
Jeremy?
Yeah.
How are you?
Who are you?
I'm Agent O'Donnell with the FBI.
Can you give your full name, please?
I'm Agent O'Donnell with the FBI.
Is that sufficient to identify as only one O'Donnell affiliated with the FBI?
In New Hampshire, yes.
Could you please state your full name, sir?
Could you please stop recording?
No. It's First Amendment right.
Okay.
What's your name, sir?
Could you stop recording, please?
Absolutely not. You can show me your name and identification, or I'm going to go back inside my house.
Okay. I don't really want to broadcast my...
Oh, this is going out right after you guys walk away.
So that's why I'm not going to...
So you can show me your name or ID, you can walk away.
We just want to talk about something.
I'm not going to talk to people who claim to be federal agents unless they can show me identification.
Okay, well, you see our badges.
I need to see... Is your full name on that badge?
No.
I'd like to see something with your full name or I'm not going to talk to
I
you.
prefer you not to broadcast it.
This will be going online as soon as you walk away.
Well, all I want to do is talk to you about a post that was made, and if you
Well,
happen to be the one that made the post.
I want to talk to you about you guys coming here. Say you make a salary of, I don't know what, low 100K? You guys making six figures? Factor in 50% expenses, overhead, maybe 100% expenses. Talking about burning a couple $100 an hour just here, let alone all the time you guys are spending to investigate something that you know is not against the law, right? Like you're familiar with. So then why would you come?
Because we wanted to make sure that there weren't any.
No, you're coming because you're part of a regime that does this kind of thing when you know laws aren't being broken, and that's an embarrassment, man. Didn't you guys read the Constitution? Do you not believe in America? Like, how do you do your jobs and go home?
We appreciate it.
You're walking away. Because nothing we did is against the law, and you guys are fuckheads that try to act like bullies. And I hope you go home and are embarrassed. You can't even say your name on camera because you know that what you're doing is embarrassing. You know Americans that believe in the Constitution think you're laughable. And you go home and you think about what you did today. Go home and think about it, you cowards. Drive away. Drive away.
Thank you for your time.
You're not welcome. You should be embarrassed. Embarrassing. You guys are embarrassing.
He said you would be a hero if someone took out someone. I'll just leave it at that. And like
running against Trump,
not advisable. Not if you've seen my Twitter account, I don't say stuff like that. Yeah. I don't recommend that libertarians say stuff like that. That is LPNH's lane. They do the extraordinarily provocative. They want to be habitual line steppers. I respect it. It's their thing. That's fine. I'm not condemning them at all. I'm not going to pull a Chase Oliver on them. But at the same time, like, it doesn't change the fact that we are Americans with a God-given right to speak our minds. And you absolutely legally have a right to say what they said there. To have FBI agents come and use my tax money to harass an American citizen who said no words on the internet. We aren't the British. I don't want to live like the British. It makes me sick to my stomach to see stuff like this. And I think Kauffman addressed them exactly as he should have, which is to degrade and just destroy them. So it was hysterical. The fact that it went viral and he racked 100,000 followers is unbelievably funny to me.
Wow.
So yeah.
Dang. Yeah. His follower count went crazy high. I'm just looking at that right now.
I didn't know that.
Dude, he racked 100K in 4 days from that video.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, it is almost 35 million views just on his account alone. And it's probably been reposted how many times too.
Yep.
Well, it's a great example of
all of the podcasts that are playing it and referencing him. And I'm like, it's probably 1,000 podcasts all across the country that are doing it simultaneously. So just those views plus all those views, it's enormous.
Yeah, and
it's a great example of knowing your rights and knowing exactly how to interact in that situation. And I would recommend everybody watch it and take notes because it's a masterclass.
This isn't Britain.
Yeah, for the in our live audience from the Skiff members, we had Adam saying, "I like how we used to say stuff like this isn't Nazi Germany or this isn't Soviet Russia. Clint, this isn't Britain."
Nice.
I have to make that distinction. I mean, they're living in Orwellian dystopia. So I think that the concerning part is that, like, we're not far behind them. Like, you look at the entire Western project from Britain to Canada to Australia to America. Like, that was kind of the tie that binded us, was that, like, broadly speaking, we had the right to speak freely. And to defend ourselves, we kind of had that uniquely, but we all kind of had the right to speak freely. They've lost that entirely, and now we are just 20% better in terms of our legal protections with these things. So I think it's really important that we take a stand on it. And unfortunately, because of this psyop that they've ran on dis and misinformation, they've convinced a lot of the American population that, like, no, censorship is good. Actually, like, the Democrats broadly think censorship is great at this point, and I just it's unfathomable to me as someone who's my age to see Democrats talking about how censorship is good is crazy.
Right.
But that's where we're at.
Yeah, it's actually a thing that I want to commend you on, because there was a point in time, probably like 2018 to 2021, where I was starting to feel very disillusioned with libertarians. And you came in and started your podcast during lockdowns, Liberty Lockdown. And I had tuned into one of your live streams, and there were a few issues where I felt like libertarians were kind of failing on. One was the censorship industrial complex. This was kind of pre-Twitter files. And the other was ESGs. I felt like libertarians just couldn't conceptualize ESGs. And I tuned into your live stream, first time I had ever listened to you, and you were giving a comprehensive breakdown of ESGs. And I was just like, oh my God, thankfully somebody gets it. I was like, but it was just these areas where eventually libertarians kind of, I feel like they're good on these now, but there was a lot of this mythology within the space, which is like, well, private companies, it's like, ESGs are like a private social credit score, and that's fine,
right.
it's fine if Twitter's banning people because they're a private company, can do it. They're not a private company, so that's just idiotic. But and you were somebody that was really good on that and kind of educated a lot of libertarians in that realm. I
think that's our job, man. I mean, this is what Ron Paul, why he had such a lasting impact is that like he wasn't telling you stuff after the fact. He was telling you it before anybody else. So if you're not doing that, I don't think you're doing libertarianism right. Like, I really don't. I don't think that you have to be educating people. Dave's made this point before that he thinks that's why, I've had the limited success that I've had is that like, I have something to tell people, and I think that's what makes libertarians special. It's not that we go around lecturing people based off of the books that we've read that they haven't. It's that we're actually, taking our knowledge, we're extrapolating it into the modern paradigm, and we're saying, hey, this is why this is a problem. And yes, it happens to tie into libertarian philosophy, and I can connect those dots for you too. But like, I think that's the really important thing. Like, that's the service that we provide, is that we warn people ahead of time. And then as they all call us crazy, and then it comes to fruition, then they go, oh, libertarians were right. Well, the whole thing with Ron Paul is Ron Paul was right. Yeah. Well, you don't get that said about him unless he's saying it beforehand. They all call him wrong, and then he becomes right. Like that's what we do. So.
Well, yeah, it was like when the censorship industrial complex stuff happened, like now we use those terms, and, Mike Benz is a great resource for all this stuff and everything. Right. But it was like until the Twitter files came out and we saw actual FBI involvement, everybody was just kind of like, oh, private company, but we had to wait for like mainstream publications to be able to report on things before libertarians could get on board and start discussing this stuff. That was one of the things that was so infuriating with me.
But
there's very few guys that understood it.
That's a mistake, though, because like, and I think, this isn't really even my libertarian background as much as my entrepreneurial background. But like, I know that when you're running a business, you're not going to alienate half the country. So the reason I knew that it was a government interference op is because I knew that they wouldn't be doing this to themselves, because they were opening the doors to competitors. The same reason I know that YouTube is not making these decisions to kick us all off is because they don't want to open the door to Rumble. Why would they? That's stupid. You have a monopoly at this junction. Why would you possibly give that up with your own absurd decision making? You wouldn't. You would not do that. You would say, this is the home for everybody. Everybody come in here. Oh, this advertiser doesn't want to, run ads during a gun YouTuber. Well, then we'll get a different company to advertise with them. Like, that's what you would actually do if you were functioning as a normal entrepreneur who has a monopoly. Like, you don't destroy that on your own. But they were doing it very aggressively. And so any libertarian that has any entrepreneurial background should have been able to see what I saw right away. That all of these companies that are basically creating a competitive environment when there wasn't one, you had to know something was up. And it makes me mad, honestly, that it wasn't all of us. Like, this should have been very obvious to everybody. Am I wrong? Like, does that not, like, now that I explain it, does that not make perfect sense?
I felt the exact same way. Like, I was so disillusioned with libertarians during that time period for exactly that reason. And it was why I was like, oh, this new guy that's popping up is all of a sudden talking about this stuff. I was like, maybe there's some hope left. Maybe there's hope.
I'm glad I can bring you back from the brink, man.
What's even worse is that...
And my audience did the same thing for me.
What's even worse is that now that we even have the information we do, now we have Public and Taibbi and folks reporting on the Twitter files and the censorship industrial complex, we still, to this day, have actual GEC, that's the Global Engagement Center, and other CTIL file releases that are going nowhere, that are not broadly understood by the general public. Like, people still don't, we haven't penetrated the general ideas about what is the nature of government, what are they doing with, this whole Brazil X-Files thing. That's not just something weird Brazil's doing. We sent FBI agents down to Brazil to help them run their elections a couple years ago. FBI agents, why? That we have tons of unanswered questions in that space that is rife with an ability, with interest, and should be generated massive amounts of clicks and views. And we get penetration into the X space, we get penetration to the broad center right, but it's not broadly understood by the larger public. So that's where we're at.
I think that's because, as Clint pointed out, there's half the country that actually thinks that this censorship is a good thing. So why would they want to invest in understanding it or criticizing it? Of course they will.
And if they do understand it, they just go, that's good. So
yeah, exactly.
There's no scandal here. This is good. It's dangerous, very dangerous. And by the way, I had Addy Ads on my show, who's an American, independent journalist that went to Brazil during that election, and I had him on like a few months after he was there, who was basically threatened by what he knows to be U.S. State Department, essentially forces. So, like, yeah, dude, like this is an American, interference op, and I'll just leave it at that, because you say anything more than that, you could get suspended when it comes to Brazil. So, yeah, like,
or some agents will show up at your door.
Well, no, I'm not worried about that. But I'm just trying to keep your channel alive.
Just but film it. If it happens, film it. Put it on Twitter.
Yeah, of course, dude. Yeah, I mean, now that I've seen, I could be sitting on 250,000 followers if I play my cards right.
Awesome. Right. Well, Clint, thanks so much for joining us today, man. And for all of our viewers and listeners that want to check you out, if they're not already following you, where can they do that?
At Liberty Lock Pod on X. You got to keep me ahead of Kauffman. He's hot on my heels, so this is very dangerous. I don't have any FBI viral videos, so FBI, if you'd like to come visit me, I'm kidding. Please, God, don't.
I'm start stirring the pot.
Yeah, don't.
I guarantee we could get you. We could get you at least dozens of new followers. I will only guarantee that.
All right, thank you. At Liberty Lock Pod on X. If people want to support my work, subscribe there. That's the easiest way to support me. Liberty Lockdown is the name of the show. It's everywhere, so just search for that. I've really been doing a ton more like pre and post production on Liberty Lockdown. I'm doing less episodes, but I think they're the highest quality thing I've ever done. So if anyone's listening that had listened to me in the past that hasn't listened to me in a while, I would highly recommend you check out some of my recent work. I think it's the best work I've ever done. I also do the Best Political Show with Luke Rudowski 3 nights a week. We have an exclusive deal on Rumble. All one word, We Are Change over there. And that's the name of the channel, is We Are Change. And then I do Tower Gang, which you should never, ever watch.
Too late.
But thank you guys for having me. And I'm happy to see someone that's actually, or a group of people that's actually taking the time to do a decent production. I watched one of your episodes and I was like, oh, they're like, there's like a real thing here. There's like a real studio. Most libertarians do like terrible production quality. So God bless, and I wish you guys success.
Awesome.
Thanks. Likewise, Clint.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Clint.
Thanks for tuning in to Human Reaction. Please be sure to like, follow, subscribe, and give us a review on your podcast platform of choice. And if you want to become a member and support the show financially, check out humanreactionpod.com. And remember,
your team's gay.
They're all gay or CIA, bro. Like everybody I love. It sucks.
That might be the title of the episode now. They're all gay or CIA.
Everything is gay with Clint Russell.